This is the original stainless steel scale model of the jail cells of Alcatraz. It is a working model. It was made by the Stewart Iron Works Company in 1932, and they were eventually awarded the contract for Alcatraz and built all the jail cells there. This is an example of some of the bar stock that was used to build the actual bars at Alcatraz.
This is actually what these
verticals.
would have been made out of.
Yes, and they were made so that you couldn't saw through them, but eventually they actually did get sawed through.
Well, that's fantastic. These you brought along?
These are actually the master keys to Alcatraz. We have about 20 of them. I brought in a sample of them today. I know that the one here opens up the mess room hall, that the other one opens up a typical jail cell door.
When Alcatraz was closed, you came at you.
Actually, the company kept a master key of every jail cell that they made.
Oh, so they could make copies.
And they had a secret registry that they kept with the Department of Justice.
Well, this is fantastic. I love this. Well, it's a model, but it's also what we'd also call a salesman sample because it would be used when you wanted to demonstrate it for other jail penitentiary places in Alcatraz. And the thing that I love about salesman samples is they are highly detailed because they really want to show exactly how this works. I mean, the other thing that's great about a salesman sample is when you actually see the name of the maker on the object, which is this wonderful plate here. The whole thing with a jail cell door is that you can open one or a whole bank of doors or just one individual. And there's a complex mechanism in here that, let's see, you've got the doors closed, and there we open the center door and these stay closed. With different adjustments in here, you can open the whole bank to let everybody go to the mess hall when they open it up.
Whatever the warden wanted.
It's just fantastic. We're going to close up I know you brought some other material here. I think it's neat that you also brought a photograph of Alcatraz, I guess the same period when this was put in, which was the mid-30s.
Yes.
How did you come by all this?
Because I'm head of design for the company, I've become really obsessed with the 150-year history of it, and I collect all things Stewart Iron Works. I collect furniture, I collect light fixtures, gates, vents, ornamental iron. When they stopped owning the company, the Stewart family themselves still had individual items, and Sherry is a very good friend of mine, and she gifted me this piece.
Well, I think at auction I would fully expect it to bring minimum $15,000.
Oh, wow.
It's really terrific. It's got everything going for it.
My grandfather was a salesman for the York Safe and Lock Company. It's my understanding that he used to lug this model around to prospective customers, trying to sell them full-size vaults and safes. It's so heavy, my mom was afraid to put it up on the shelf for fear that it would fall. It's always been a conversation piece.
It is a little gem, honestly. It's what we would call in the trade a salesman sample. It's got all the company information on it, York Safe and Lock Company, York, PA, and then it has a patent date of July 31st, 1906. It's actually a working model. It's not just a toy model. It's so highly detailed. It's meant to represent the full-scale model. So we open the door and we can see the interior is exactly like the full scale would appear, with this glass over the mechanism so you could see it working, and that inner part would rotate to lock it inside the cabinet here. And it's even fitted with shelves inside. The patent on this was because of the circular design. Most safes at the time, especially if you watch cartoons, are big rectangular things that fall on your head. But those were easy to break into with explosives. This was harder to do with explosives because of the round shape. It would deflect a lot of the blasts, and even if you did, you'd likely not be able to get into it like you could a paneled safe that would have had welded sides. And in fact, close it back up, and we look on the back, it has this decal which tells us it won the highest honors at the Panama Pacific International Exposition. What's great about this is that it says manganese steel safe. Manganese steel is a special kind of steel. It's less brittle than traditional steel. It's also non-magnetic. In fact, it was used during the war for soldiers' helmets so it wouldn't interfere with compasses. Another selling point that they had painted on the front. A little bit of wear, but just enough wear to make you know it's It's period, but not so much wear that it's lost some of its value because of the loss of the design. Your grandfather carried it around for many, many years. And actually, we have a picture of him, too. He's right standing in front of a larger version of this with a circular door.
That's him.
Did he ever talk about it?
No, unfortunately, he passed before I was born. I think it also had a case at one point that he would carry it around in.
Is that anywhere in the attic?
No, that has never been. As long as I can remember, it was just this item.
Got it. If this were to come up for auction today, I think a reasonable auction estimate would be $30,000 to $50,000.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
It's a gem.
And I might actually build a shelf for it now.
I love it.
That is remarkable.
Sometimes the most ordinary boxes possess some pretty extraordinary things.
My father owned a construction company for many years. I've had it since the 1940s. It's a scale model of an early Adams leaning wheel road grader, and the operator would stand back here and it would be pulled by either horses or mules or tractors when they came. And my understanding is that this was a salesman's sample. The salesman could carry this around in this case and show this machine for them to use to build roads when this part of the country was first being developed.
You think of just how hard a salesman had to work in this time, how many miles he had to log. You see how worn the case is, but also you focus in after that on how wonderful this machine is. The salesman had to stand up there, not with a picture, but with an actual model saying, this is what it can do, this is how we're gonna make your life a lot better. And hopefully he was successful at it. You see the angled wheels?
That slants the rear wheels, and this one slants the front wheels.
Right.
That's for operating on the side of a hill.
And on the side here, it says Adams Leaning Wheel Grader. So it's telling you exactly what it is. At this point, this was an industry, but it was an art form in the sense that this really, truly takes on a sculptural quality that's better than a lot of things that are done. There's a lot of pride that goes into this. And it was this that made him able to sell these to so many of the towns and create the roads that we see around the Great Plains. I would say that probably in a well-publicized auction where there's some other salesman samples, you'd probably be expecting somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000. So,
wow, I had no idea.
It belonged to my great-grandfather. He was a doctor. I know it was a salesman sample that he kept in his office. When my parents passed away, I inherited it. My mother sent pictures of it to an appraiser in San Francisco in, I believe, 79 or 80, and they sent her back a note saying it was worth around $1,500.
Well, it is a salesman sample. The keynote of a really good salesman sample is that it has functionality, because the whole object of the piece was to demonstrate the item. The salesman could carry this around from town to town and show the doctor exactly what he had. And of all the salesman samples I've dealt with over the years, this is probably the most amazingly functional item I've ever seen. It's a doctor's examination table. The patient could lie down here and be examined with a pillow. If he had to have his height adjusted, this could be adjusted here. The legs would come up like this. They could even do one leg at a time. This is a little accessory that would go on the side if he had to examine an arm or maybe draw blood.
For the arm.
And it could, of course, go on either side. The table would rock to one side. I'm not exactly sure what that was for, but it could go either way. This whole leg assembly comes off.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that another feature of the table could be in place where it becomes a gynecological examination table with the installation of these stirrups. Another thing that elevates the salesman sample to the next level is if we can identify the maker. Now, right here on this upholstered footrest, we see Allison. There was a company called W.D. Allison in 1905, 1900 in Indianapolis that made all manner of medical equipment. Nothing they made in that period that I've seen online was as amazing as this table. But I think this table was made pre-1900, amazing detail, amazing condition, complete in all respects. I would estimate it in an auction at $15,000 to $18,000.
You're kidding.
I am not kidding.
Wow.
This is absolutely one of the finest salesman samples I've ever seen.
It's a traveling salesman model of a windmill. And it was early 1900s, and my father lived on a farm in Wapakoneta, Ohio, and the traveling salesman came and ended up staying at their farm for a while, but couldn't pay for it, and so he left this as collateral and was going to come back with the payment, and he never came back. My father, being the youngest of 10, he and his older brother kind of tucked it away and put it up in the hayloft. And my dad ended up with it. He would disassemble it, put it in a closet and keep it safe, and every once in a while bring it out, and his eyes would light up because it brought him that memory or whatever, and it was a real joy. So he's been gone, but it's a reminder of that moment whenever he would get it out and play with it. And,
Sure.
And I've never seen anyone like it, so I'm just curious about finding out what it's about.
Well, it is a beautiful piece. What year would you say
He
that?
was born in 1909, so the teens, I would say.
It was a traveling salesman's sample of what would be a full-size windmill that a prospective farmer could buy to add to the property. This side is painted on to show that it was made by the Monitor Manufacturing Company in Auburn, Indiana. And on this side of the blade, it shows that it is the improved Monitor. This company began sometime around 1880. A lot of your paperwork here is documented from 1890. The windmill really began in mass production in Indiana around 1865. So the Monitor Company out of Auburn, Indiana, came a little bit later, but came with some good advancements that really helped catapult them to the top of the windmill production. And as it rotates and spins around, this piston goes up and down, which would pump water from 200 feet in the ground or so, and could be used in farming, of course, for irrigation, for water pumps, for water retention, ponds, etc. What's fascinating is not only do you have the salesman sample, but you have all the ephemera that he would have with him. You have the quite well used and worn and written in pocket catalog price guide. And the salesman would assist the customer from using the price guide to fill out the order form. In addition, you have several copies of a simple advertisement flyer advertising the disc harrow farm implement that the company had manufactured as well, which he could, of course, leave behind with the customer in an attempt to get a future sale. In addition, you have a fully illustrated manufacturer's catalog, which documents all the products, or many of the products, that the company had made. It also describes how the different products work. We do see salesman samples quite often. And a salesman sample could be for a traveling salesman, which is when we see the case, or it could have been used just in the factory as a demonstration. Given that you have the case, and given that you have the paperwork, that's the ephemera is what really gets me excited. I would place an auction estimation on this piece with everything that comes with it from $8,000 to $12,000. And given how beautiful it all is, I could see it bringing more than that.
Wow, that's great.
Do you know, was there a windmill on the farm?
I was the youngest of all the cousins. I don't remember if there was.
Okay.
As far as I know, it's an 1896 salesman's model of a case agitator thrashing machine. And that's the original box that it was set for 86 years on a shelf in. Where that guy got it from, I don't know.
And how did you happen to come by it?
About 8 years ago, I seen it for the first time. A guy just said, "You got to see this." And I wanted to buy it off him, and he said, no. He said, let's just put it back on the shelf. And about a couple of months ago, he called up, and I got it.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me, what did you pay for it?
I give $3,500 for it.
Well, it is a case thresher. J.I. Case went into business in 1844, and they were one of the great thresher machine makers. They started off obviously much smaller scale than this, and this was sort of the ultimate thresher. So the bundles go in here, and the trains pull them up, and this mechanism cuts the strings, so everything goes down in here.
Through the cylinder.
Here it goes into the agitator, which separates the oats from the shaft. The oats go down, and they come up this tube. It weighs it, and it tells you how many bushels they got. Goes out in here, out in the tube into the wagon.
Correct.
And the shaft goes out on the stacker off into the field, which actually goes out that way.
Right.
It's an extraordinary piece of machinery. It started in Racine, Wisconsin. Ended up, I think they were building them in Chicago even, but this is absolutely fantastic. I love Salesman Samples. What's great about a Salesman Sample is it is functional. And we can also see in here, you can go inside and actually see the mechanism. So when they show this to the farmer, they can show him exactly how it's going to work. That's the beauty of these things. And here it is in the original crate, so they could ship it off to agricultural shows and show exactly how it worked. I love toys when they're in the original boxes, but to have something like this in the original box, and it still has the shipping tags over here. Well, Salesman Samples do very well at auction. Agricultural Salesman Samples are among the best at auction. This is one of the best, if not the best, agricultural Salesman Sample I've ever seen. Some of the things, though, that can affect value or size. There's a lot of people who can't handle this. So I'm going to say at auction, I'm going to have a kind of a wide range. But my estimate on this auction value would be somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000. And I think it would be closer to the 20 than the 10.
Appreciate that.
And I really appreciate you bringing it in because it wasn't easy.